Thank you very much, MP Simon de Nobrega. I recognize the presence of two additional parliamentary colleagues, MP Young and MP Birchwood, and we are, of course, in the facility of the leader of the opposition, so I also recognize her, who's also the political leader of the People's National Movement. On the 24th of June 2026, 8 days ago, a neighboring state of Venezuela experienced an unprecedented natural disaster in the form of a double earthquake, 7.5 and 7.2 in magnitude, which occurred approximately 39 seconds apart. This has caused tremendous devastation to the neighboring state of Venezuela, and the toll from that disaster is still being assessed and accounted for as we speak. There are tens of thousands of persons that have been missing. I'll give some of the updated data that we are receiving from Venezuela. But the first point I want to make is that the people of Trinidad and Tobago, right across this country, have been moved and saddened and hurt by the devastation that we have seen taken place in Venezuela. And there have been expressions right across the society of this country of profound sadness and solidarity with the government and people of Venezuela. And it's an expression of, I think, our nobility as a people, our kindness, our warmth, and our empathy, that this has moved this society, our society, to this extent. I think in part there's a sense of acknowledgement that there, but for the grace of God, could be us, could be little Trinidad and Tobago, having a very close proximity to Venezuela, and we don't know what the future holds, and that has added to this sense of empathy and solidarity. In terms of the impact, the latest figures we've received from the government of Venezuela indicates that there are 2,295 persons thus far that have been officially declared dead. That's a large number of persons, almost approaching the scale of the death toll from 9/11, etc., and the numbers are still coming in. So this is not a small disaster. Officially, 11,267 have been indicated as injured. 12,841 have been displaced from their residences and places of abode. And already 6,461 have been rescued. These are human beings that have been rescued by the international and domestic rescue teams that have been mobilized into this horrific disaster that has taken place. And as I said, still tens of thousands have been missing, and the search, rescue, and relief efforts are ongoing. There's been widespread damage, particularly in the La Guaira state, which unfortunately was the very same state in 1999 that was devastated by some of the worst mudslides this world has ever seen. The Vargas tragedy, which killed over 10,000 persons right there in La Guaira 26 years ago. And now, once again, that location has been the focus of this double earthquake, as well as damage in Caracas, Miranda, Carabobo, Aragua, and some other locations. So you're talking about a very large-scale disaster. Now, Caricom has distinguished itself in mobilizing assistance with immediate effect to the people of Venezuela. I can give a few examples. Barbados has already dispatched, the number given was 12 skilled rescuers have gone from Barbados to Venezuela. They've already mobilized a field hospital, as well as the relevant medical personnel that will accompany this field hospital. The field hospital has not yet arrived in Venezuela, but the rescuers are there, and these other facilities will follow. The Commonwealth of Dominica, a very small and noble neighbor within Caricom, has mobilized a monetary grant donation from the government of Dominica to the government of Venezuela to assist in their relief and recovery efforts. Guyana is a particular case, another very close neighbor of Venezuela, similar to Trinidad and Tobago, which has its difficulties in another arena with respect to a border controversy. But we took note that President Delcy Rodriguez, acting President Delcy Rodriguez, specifically singled out and thanked President Irfan Ali for his solidarity in the aftermath of the earthquakes. She singled out, and I quote, his willingness to support the Venezuelan people during these difficult times. She went on to say, his message, President of Guyana's message, conveys solidarity, respect, and a sense of neighborliness toward Venezuelans. The acting president of Venezuela also singled out Barbados and its Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, as well as Dominica. Conspicuously absent from those acknowledgements, I have to say, has been the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar. It could be that the statement released by this country was not of the caliber and intensity and was insufficient, in our view, in conveying the sentiments, the heartfelt sentiments of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And this statement, which came out on June 24th, 2026, included a phrase which already has received the attention of the leader of the opposition at a recent media conference, but it bears underscoring. Phrases such as, the government of Trinidad and Tobago stands prepared to provide any requested support, and I want to highlight that term, requested support and assistance to the Venezuelan authorities where possible. So you include a number of provisos. This is in the immediate aftermath of one of the largest natural disasters in living memory in a neighboring state, and you find your way crafting and releasing a statement with so many provisos and apparently an indication that requests have to come from Venezuela for support to be availed to Venezuela. And that last phrase of where possible. That is not the language appropriate in a circumstance like this, and that could have contributed to the acknowledgements and lack thereof. In addition, of course, to all of this occurs in the shadow, in the aftermath of the tragedy that MP Young referred to, which is a tragedy of unfortunate rhetoric and belligerence over the last year that has come from Port of Spain and the government of this country to Caracas and the government of that country. All of it is relevant, all of it is connected, and in those circumstances it would have behooved, it still behooves the government of this country to be more prudent and comprehensive in its response, its reaction, its statements, its positions with respect to this earthquake tragedy. And that has not as yet happened. And I will go on to give some specific recommendations on behalf of the opposition, because we're not just here to criticize what the government is doing, but we're here to help ensure that Trinidad and Tobago does its part in these circumstances, along with the rest of the Caribbean community. So I mentioned Guyana. Guyana has mobilized over 100 containers, up to 8,000 tons of medicine, food, supplies, etc. Soldiers are being sent from Guyana to Venezuela. So all of this is not just academic or waiting on responses, but neighboring countries, Caricom member states, doing our part as we've always done. That's part of the Caricom tradition. St. Kitts and Nevis sending 3 containers of food, Antigua and Barbuda committing $150,000 to the effort by way of a contribution. So some of the recommendations that I'd want to indicate: to immediately accelerate the conveyance of relief and support to Venezuela. My understanding is accounts have been opened for the public to contribute. There's a facility for collection at Point Lisas. The government is looking to identify the appropriate vessel, possibly the Galleon's Passage. But the official support, the conveyance of official communication, the logistics to make this happen is not being treated with the urgency that these circumstances require. And the signal being received on the other end may not be the right signal in these circumstances. So the government has to accelerate. You would take note that President Irfan Ali, since last weekend, convened a media conference on this issue. He stood in front of the media, I'm saying that deliberately, he stood in front of the media accompanied by the top brass of the Guyanese Defense Force, the military personnel, accompanied by the private sector leadership, and accompanied by the Disaster Relief Commission of Guyana. We're not saying that just to make Kamla Persad-Bissessar feel bad, though she should. We're saying that as an example of the type of statesmanship and response that is expected and demanded of a neighboring country, given the scope and scale of this disaster. Is it too much to ask for Kamla Persad-Bissessar to have done something similar and to break her absence from the media, which is almost a year now, complete absence on failure to convene a media conference, but at least in this circumstance, you didn't do it for states of emergency, mass killings and other things occurring in this country. But with this apocalyptic scenario in a neighboring state, given the errors committed by Trinidad and Tobago over the last year with respect to Venezuela, these are some of the gestures, positions, and reactions that can make a difference. She chooses to do otherwise. Other recommendations: work with migrant groups, religious organizations, NGOs, the TTMA, etc., to raise additional support. I don't feel enough work has been done in this regard. A financial contribution, not just by opening an account, but a determination from the government of Trinidad and Tobago in these circumstances. It may not be $1 billion, but if a small state such as Antigua and Barbuda and Dominica within Caricom, from a government level, can make that kind of at least symbolic contribution, Trinidad and Tobago should consider similar as well. It can make a difference. We have field hospitals in Trinidad and Tobago, some of which were received during the period of COVID-19. We haven't heard enough about that. There is the possibility in the immediate aftermath, as relief and recovery efforts are underway at this time, for Trinidad and Tobago to do more to provide and convey tangible assistance, some of which should already be in Caracas at this time. We have not been able to confirm from the government of Trinidad and Tobago the arrival of an iota of tangible support, relief, or supplies after 8 days subsequent to this disaster. We are here to say that is not good enough in these circumstances. The acting president of Venezuela has declared 7 days of official mourning for the victims of this terrible natural disaster, beginning at 6 p.m. yesterday evening. So there are 7 days. As a neighboring state, this is another recommendation. Trinidad and Tobago can consider during this period a day of national mourning in solidarity with the victims in Venezuela. We have heard nothing as well from the government in this regard. And my final recommendation is to properly vet and prepare statements and releases. There have been too many examples over the last year of the government of Trinidad and Tobago representing us, the people of this country, putting out statements that sometimes do more harm than good, that damage relations, and that do not appropriately convey the sentiments, the genuine sentiments of the people of this country. And that's another example of the government simply not doing the job that they were elected to do. So properly vet and prepare future statements. A good example was the statement released by the leader of the opposition immediately after these earthquakes, which was much better in conveying the deep condolences to the people of Venezuela and did not contain all of the provisos that Kamla Persad-Bissessar's statement through the Ministry of Foreign and Caricom Affairs was loaded with, and which we have already put a spotlight on. And then, of course, obviously, more needs to be done to prepare Trinidad and Tobago for the potential for a similar disaster here in the future. I believe the leader of the opposition used the phrase, when your neighbor's house is on fire, you have to wet yours. And there's been too much silence across this country. There's an opportunity as people are sensitized and alerted to the jeopardy that could befall us to do more, even now, to accelerate our own preparation, because there, but for the grace of God, could go us. So I wanted to speak a little bit about that disaster. We began with official conveyance of our empathy, sympathy, and support, and some clear recommendations to the government of this country as to what more we can do and what better we can do in these circumstances. Connected to all of this, of course, is the upcoming Caricom Heads of Government Conference of Heads of Government, the 51st conference, which will take place in St. Lucia from the 3rd to the 8th, the 5th to the 8th of July, 2026. We were very pleased at the opposition to see indications via media reports that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago will attend this conference in St. Lucia. Why do we take the time to say that? Well, her attendance at relevant Caricom fora in the past has been inconsistent and unpredictable. It is unfortunate, and we must state, that the only heads meeting that she did attend during this tenure as Prime Minister was the last one, which took place in St. Kitts and Nevis, which resulted in a disaster, diplomatic disaster, of the making and creation of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. It is our hope that the Prime Minister is not going to St. Lucia to try to revive and resuscitate that crisis that she herself created. In so saying, we at the opposition congratulate the very distinguished Prime Minister Philip Pear, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, as the incoming chairman of Caricom. He will be chairman from the 1st of July to the 31st of December this year. We recognize that he brings to the chairmanship the attributes of very much a man of reason and peace. He's a very soft-spoken leader, but very determined and focused. He was one of those who was very clear in his support for the process of the reappointment of the Secretary General and what occurred in St. Kitts and Nevis, that he's very much a mediator, a broker of peace. And it is our anticipation that this period of the chairmanship of Caricom will be conducted with a characteristic focus on solidarity and moving Caricom forward. The clearest statement coming from this incoming chairman has been one of conveying his commitment to bring Caricom closer to the ordinary people of the region. And so the ordinary people of Trinidad and Tobago and other member states will feel more directly the benefits of Caricom. And that's something that would resonate with all of us, and we wish him well. And we in the People's National Movement, as stakeholders within Caricom, will do our part to help that objective to be materialized. Of course, that is predicated on Trinidad and Tobago as a member state, a leading and founding member state, doing its part. And, well, should I say the jury is out on that because of the reckless and irresponsible positions of our Prime Minister and government over the last year with respect to Caricom. So we anticipate that at this heads meeting, there will be resistance to any attempts to revive that the issue of those attacks mobilized against the Secretary General and the process from which Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister absented herself. And I hereby invite the media, the good members, responsible members of the media, to continue to press for an explanation from our Prime Minister. It's an unexplained absence to this point. Why did she absent herself from the heads retreat in Nevis? That absence was the trigger for everything that subsequently occurred. And if the Prime Minister was present, it would have averted, or should have averted, a lot of the disaster that she and her goodly Minister Sobers subsequently foisted upon the Caribbean community. In retrospect, a lot of that, the posturing of Trinidad and Tobago after she absented herself without explanation, was rather truculent and childish and bereft of principle. Someone told me the other day, it's like if you stay home from an exam, you have an exam at school and you stay home from the exam, but when the results come out, you're trying to burn down the school itself. You stay home from the exam, you didn't sit it. Before results, I don't know if there are any members in the Senate who might want to burn down any school, but that's a whole different topic altogether. And the final note, and it's a serious note, is today is the 10-year. Today is the 10-year anniversary of the passing of the late great Mr. Patrick Augustus Mervyn Manning. It's an opportunity for us at the opposition to pause, to reflect on his legacy and leadership of his party, the country, and the region as very much a Caribbean man, and to recommit ourselves in Trinidad and Tobago to, in particular, continuing his legacy of focusing on young people and the future of our country and region. So those are the sentiments I wish to share. I thank you very much.